welcome back, Teachers on Fire, to another edition of the Teachers on Fire Roundtable, where I connect with other educators who are sparking the thinking and inspiring the practice of others in the field. Today, we're talking about Seesaw and Google Classroom. How do the two platforms work together? Can they work together? That's been a question I've been responding to a little bit lately. And so I've managed to find a few educators who are using both platforms, and I'm excited to learn from them and with them. My name is Tim Cavey. I'm the host of the Teachers on Fire podcast. I'm also an 8th grade teacher, still in the classroom 60%, and this year, a brand new assistant principal at about a 40% level. So I'm sort of seeing all sides of this picture, and I've also been a Seesaw parent as well. So I bring a little bit of that experience to the mix, but I'd like our guests to introduce themselves. So starting with Alfonso, tell us about who you are and what your context looks like right now.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Alfonso Mendoza, and I'm an instructional technologist for a school district here in South Texas. And so right now I currently serve as an instructional technologist, been working with teachers, prepping them since March 16th for this new type of learning that is taking place. And we are currently using Google Classroom for pretty much our learning management system. However, I do have some experience with Seesaw as well when I was in the classroom, and so I can definitely bring some different perspectives from both in classroom use and through Google Classroom as well.
Awesome. Taylor.
Hey, I'm Taylor Armstrong. I am the Assistant Director of Technology for Vestavia Hills City Schools. I am a Seesaw pioneer and hopefully waiting to be an ambassador soon. We also use Google Classroom, and we do all this fun stuff. And I do basically all the syncing and all the setup and all that, and helping our teachers learn how to use it and what they can and can't do in both of the programs, and just kind of all the legwork so our teachers can just do all the fun stuff.
Awesome. You're the support guy. And we've got a power team here. Matt and Alicia Rhodes, tell us about your teaching contexts.
So I am in secondary. I teach at secondary high school special education, teaching Algebra 1 this year. And I teach Google Classroom and Seesaw to my teacher candidates at San Diego State University.
I'm Alicia Rhodes, and for me, I've been teaching elementary. I've done 1st grade all the way through 5th grade now, and I'm currently doing a 4-5 distance learning combo using Seesaw and Google Classroom. I'm also a Seesaw ambassador, been using it for the last few years.
And to be clear, I think most of us probably understand what a Seesaw ambassador is. It doesn't mean it's a paid position, right, Alicia? It just means you're a big fan. You're repping the brand.
Big fan, and then you go and you do different professional developments to other educators.
Yeah, they give you their stamp of approval. And Taylor, I feel like you are also a Seesaw ambassador. Have you gone through that official Seesaw certification process?
I've got the Pioneer certification. It's right under ambassador, so I'm not as special as Alicia.
I'm not going to lie. I did it before the Pioneer program, so I think it was maybe a little easier when I first did it. I got great.
Yeah.
And they have it to where you have to be asked to do it. So it's one of those. I'm just crossing my fingers, hoping maybe if I push it out there enough, they'll go ahead and ask me.
I'll keep doing it. You will.
Well, I want to start this discussion. We're not going to spend a ton of time on Google Classroom, but I actually want to start there and talk about what is it we appreciate about Google Classroom, because we are thinking in terms of how can these two platforms work well together. So I've been a huge booster since 2016, but I don't want to do too much of the talking here. Alfonso, what is there to like about Google Classroom?
Well, pretty much what there is to like is when I first started using it years ago when I was in the classroom. You're looking at back maybe about 5-6 years ago, and then getting to learn a little bit more about Google Workspace now, it's changing and everything. It's just been great that you can just connect everything all at once through just our Gmail accounts or our single sign-on. And so it just makes that ease of communication as far as anything with our documents that we have, presentations, things of that sort. Everything is stored in one beautiful repository, one beautiful folder that is there for all teachers as students submit their assignments. everything is there that you can always come back to and check for, anytime that maybe you have an ARD, an intervention you need to do, you can check students' work, and you have those digital artifacts. The communication with students, also fairly simple, very intuitive platform. There could be some improvements, obviously, with all things, but at least for what it is doing right now and helping many districts across our nation and around the world, it's doing the best that it can for this given time, where we didn't expect what was going on. But mainly it's just the connection and communication between students and teachers.
Yeah, well put. Taylor, what would you add to that in terms of Google Classroom and why it works for your district?
Well, Google Classroom, it just has so many, they've really taken on so many tools that you can build into it. I mean, everything you can think of to put into it as far as, just anything in your classroom. It's so easy if you want to share a link or you want to build in a form or anything like that. And when it comes to Seesaw, Seesaw has so many things. Like Google and Seesaw do a lot of the same things. And so it's very easy to do one or the other because it's basically like you're in Office 16 or you're in Office, 365. It's the same thing. It just might be in a little bit different place, right? So it allows you to do both programs and allows you to work together. So if you want to implement one, it works the same, and the other one, they work cohesively. So I really like that about it. It makes it much simpler than most of the LMSs that we use. And learning management system, if somebody doesn't know what an LMS is. So whether you've got Schoology or something like that, they can be a little complicated when it comes to the teacher side. They're more built for admins, whereas Google Classroom really simplifies a lot of things so that the students and the teachers can make it easier on them to do and also make it easier on us to teach.
Yeah. Matt and Alicia, would you add anything else there about Google Classroom?
I've been using it for about like 6 years. It's just a hub where I just interconnect all the tools that I'm using. It's good for grading. It's good for communication and just putting all my other tools like Desmos, Flipgrid, my links to Seesaw for those types of tasks. So it's just a good place to organize everything. And I like using the stream as like a community center versus actually the announcement stream. So students post about what's going on in their lives in the stream, and it's a good way to communicate. But I just use it kind of as the hub, as kind of like my hyperlink central to get to everywhere else.
Yeah, I would also agree. I'm kind of new to using Google Classroom more this year than previous, being now in the upper elementary. But I like Seesaw the most when I'm doing activities for students, especially since I have a lot of emerging bilingual students or ELs. But for me, Google Classroom has really been allowing me to put a lot of the announcements on all my slides put together instead of having it jumbled up on the journal like it previous would be on Seesaw. So it does streamline a lot of those things for me.
Tim, can I give you a cheat real quick?
Yeah, for sure.
Let me give everybody a cheat. So if you have a Chromebook, which if you're on Google, you more than likely have a Chromebook. If you press Alt and the two bracket buttons at the same time, that are right above your enter button, it'll give you a split screen so you can look at them side by side. So you have your Google Classroom on one side and your Seesaw or whatever you want on the other side. And it really helps you. Like I'm on a Chromebook right now and I have a split screen, and it works really well. It'll help you a lot, and it'll help your students a lot when they're doing those things.
Yeah, but I need to know that cheat for my kids.
We're already learning. Thank you, Taylor. Tara's a good friend. She's commenting that we are using Seesaw across our district at the elementary, and we love all being on the same page. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I want to say, in terms of Google Classroom, so a couple of things I really love. I love the way Google Classroom integrates the G Suite or the Google Workspace apps. I'm still getting used to that name change. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. So as a literacy teacher, as an English teacher, I can put together some sort of activity on a Google Doc and then use that make a copy for every student function. And then that's not the end of the magic. And then I can drop in on students in their Google Doc while they are working, while they are creating content, and actually coach them and offer feedback right there in the doc. That's something that Seesaw doesn't allow. So points for Google Classroom on that. And it's helpful if you're not in Google Classroom. It's helpful to understand Classroom in a way as sort of just a shell over Google Drive. everything you're sort of using inside of that workspace is, or most of it, most of that content comes from Google Drive. So most classroom teachers are using docs, and they're using sheets and slides and forms and now Jamboards and other apps that live in that space. So it integrates really, really well, and I could go on with that. One other quick example is that, in terms of multiple choice quizzes, Google Forms integrates really, really well. I don't really do a whole lot of multiple choice quizzes. I haven't done one yet this year, but if you're into that, if you like that kind of assessment, if you find it helpful, though, you can set that up so that it's all tight within Google Classroom. It sort of marks itself, it grades itself, and gives students that feedback right away. So we can go on, and I'm sure we'll think of other features that we love about Classroom, but I also want to get into Seesaw. So for the uninitiated, and I should pause here to say that I'm in a middle school that has Classroom and is introducing Seesaw. Okay, so I'm working with a lot of teachers who are big Classroom boosters and fans, and they're maybe a little unconvinced at this early stage in terms of what Seesaw can do and why it even belongs in the picture. So let's talk a little bit about what we love about Seesaw, particularly. Alfonso, I'll go back to you. What have you come to appreciate about Seesaw? Well,
starting pretty much like Alicia said, being kind of grandfathered in as far as the ambassador back in the day when I was doing this in the classroom, I found it very helpful that, the students, the ability that they had their devices and the types of activities that we were able to create just made it so much simpler to just create something that's interactive, things that we can do, our science experiments, things of that sort, that they can take pictures, they can label, they can do some wonderful work within that that platform that you really can't do directly on Google Classroom, where you would have to use, of course, within Google Slides, you can embed things in there and so on. But here, to me, it was just a one-stop shop for interactivity, hands-on learning. Students can record their voiceovers. And one thing that I loved about it was the parent communication, that, parents can see the work, we can share it, and just started building up community through the use of Seesaw. And so I see Seesaw as a great tool, maybe for K through, actually, you can use it K through 12, but I know for a lot of districts that I'm seeing it, they're using it, mainly for the littles, maybe K through 3rd, K through 4th. And then after that, they're transitioning into Google Classroom as they get into maybe middle school and, higher grades and so on. But I would never sleep on a tool that can give you the multimodal learning that you can accomplish within that, all at one stop. And that's what I love about it. You can hit different modalities and, you have those learning artifacts. It's interactive, it's fun, it's easy. And most importantly to me is just the family involvement, the parents. I know with Google Classroom, you get those student summaries that, you get them either, every couple of days, or you get them a week, but they really don't tell you much. Here, it's like you're sending a snapshot of what your son or daughter are doing at home immediately, and mom and dad can open up and say, wow, dude, look at what my son's doing. Look at what my daughter's doing in class. Look at what the whole class is doing. And it just builds that community. And that's what I love about Seesaw.
We've got our friends at the staff room popping in here saying our board is trying to shift from Google to Brightspace, holding on desperately. We're cheering you on, because I don't know what Brightspace is. I bet Taylor knows what he doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with them.
Stay with Google.
Stay with Google if you can.
Yeah, stay with them.
Taylor, what would you add to, and Fonz, that was very well put. Wow, you were dropping some pedagogical terms that really nail it, I think. But Taylor, what would you add to that in terms of Seesaw?
Well, when I look at things, I always look at how I can help my teachers, because I remember being in the classroom going, you want me to do what? You want me to add what to this? And so when I look at this, like the way we've done it, and I was telling y'all before this, if I set it up, we can set ours up to sync to our student information system. And what it does is it automatically enroll any student that is enrolled in that teacher's class. It automatically makes their class for them. It automatically enrolls them in them. And all they got to do is start handing out assignments. That's all they got to do. So we take all that back work out of there. But at the same time, I told y'all they couldn't edit them. So we've added a feature where they can add their own class if they want to. and add students in there, and they can still bring parents in and things like that. So instead of spending those hours making things, we've made it to where it's made, and then if you want something extra, you can add that in as well. So we're taking that time away from actually the setup and letting them do the instruction, and that's what we're supposed to do, and that's where we're at. That integration is key, because especially now, teachers have so much to do, and then they have a whole nother job to do on top of it. So it's important to remember, just because I'm at central office now, I can't forget what it was like to be in that classroom.
Exactly.
And so if I'm making their lives harder, then I'm making life for everybody harder. So my job is to take that off their plate and make it easier. So then when we do that, they can do great, because I'm also a Seesaw parent. My kids are in school at that school, so I can log in and see every assignment they've done. I can see in a minute, I can see, okay, they've done this or that, or they're struggling with this letter or that letter, or because I have kindergartners there. And I can see, okay, this one did great on this assignment, and I can have a spot check of where they are and know when we get home, let's work on this. Because every night when we get home, we do our own work on letters or numbers or whatever. And so it's great for me as a parent to also say, I've got this and I can do this. But as a teacher, I'm so blessed. I have Seesaw ambassadors, multiple, at each of my elementary schools, and I have 5 elementary schools.
Wow.
So I am so blessed to have that. And they come up with such great ideas, and I'm just like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it. Because at the end of the day, my job is to find out how to do it, not say we can't do it, right? So it opens up a whole new world, that while Google Classroom is great, it opens up a whole new world of where we want to annotate, we want to practice, we want to do all these things that embed those skills that we're trying to teach, but we don't have to have a teacher right over your shoulder every second of every day, and we can just review and keep going, and it just makes the teacher's life and the student's life that much more productive and that much better.
Well put. Let's go over to the Rhodes team. Alicia, I feel like of all of us here, you're probably the one using Seesaw the most in your classroom right now. So talk to us about that. And between the two of you, we need to make sure we hear that wonderful story that you teased on Twitter about, one of you sort of introduced the other to one platform, and then you did that reversal as well. So let's hear that too. But Alicia, start out by telling us a little bit about how you use Seesaw, what you love about it in your classroom.
Definitely. So right now, with being, I've gotten to bounce around from different districts, thank you, temporary contracts, but being able to try out Seesaw in different districts. And one of them, when I was in the induction program, I had my professor at the time, Tara Colville, she introduced me to Seesaw, and once I got into it, I was hooked. It was super easy for me to understand. Their trainings are really simple. They post it as, I think, PD in your PJs,
right,
or PD on the couch. And so I, on one Saturday, sat in my pajamas and just kind of busted through their trainings and realizing what you guys said of the parent side of it, but then also the teacher end and the student end. So to kind of piggyback on what you guys said about the activities, I'm going to share my screen real quick. I have some stuff I've posted, and I have a dummy account. So hold on, there it is. And so on my dummy, my little PD account here, hopefully you guys can see my end. So these are different activities that I've posted with my students this year already. I've had opportunities of working with Seesaw in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, now 4th and 5th grade. And I do see that some districts are really more towards Seesaw being a K-3. And so for me, I really am wanting to show that how 4th grade and 5th grade really do need this, especially like you said, with working as a parent. This has really been providing my parents that background of what we're doing in class, and then also allowing them to work with their kids. So for instance, one of these activities, so we do Kid News, which is a podcast that teaches that gives the news to the kids. Okay. And so here, a new feature that they've really brought out this new school year after the spring, when everybody due to COVID came and was back online. They've allowed for us to now embed links into our activities, which has been really beneficial because I'm not having to send out a link, say, please go watch this, now go here. I'm able to click the link and they can go straight to the podcast in a new tab. And then being an ambassador and having Seesaw Plus, I'm able to have a multi-page activity for my kids. And so here you can see we did different notes for them while they were listening. And I scaffolded with some sentence starters. And at the end, their goal was to write a summary about what they did. One tool that I've really appreciated, especially having a majority, almost I want to say 90% of my students being English learners, is the ability for them to record their voice using the microphone. It's also been great during math because now when you use the microphone, it records the page itself and not just the voice. So they can move manipulatives around and explain things in math, but also just giving them that oral practice in order to show what they've learned has been really extremely helpful. Another one is just kind of adding Padlet to some of my activities and adding some screenshots of our reading. Being a digital learning teacher, it's been extremely hard to be able to give my kids some outside worksheets without having to possibly prep them a week in advance, get them sent out to kids. And so to minimize some headache of posting links, you're able to do it right away. And then also you can link not only the website you're wanting, but now you can link to different pages in the activity. So for our students, we did a pre-reading activity together. Then we did the reading itself with notes so they can annotate using the pen tool. Love the highlighter. And then we took that and did some of our why was that important, what you highlighted. And then the last step for them was to go onto a Padlet to do a response. And so again, that then gave them that outside source to record themselves with videos and also even just post a picture of the writing, whichever they felt comfortable about.
Alicia, you are really opening my eyes to the power of hyperlinks within that Seesaw page. I haven't done that a single time, so I'm going to have to play with that for sure. And even linking not only to external sites, but to other parts of the same Seesaw or other slides in the same Seesaw assignment, if I understand that correctly. Now, when kids click that link and go to an external site, I'm assuming it opens in a new tab, and then then they can just pop right back in. Okay, that's great. Cool.
And then I'm sure, Taylor, you used, like you said, the double screen. If my kids were wanting to do that, that would be something. If we've been doing a lot of CNN 10 as well, if we don't do kids news.
Well, that double screen's huge. That double screen's huge because, like Tim said, when you pop that new one open, you still have your work on one side, and then you can be doing the activity on the other. So you're never behind there. You're always doing the same things, but you know where you're supposed to be at. And then I was wondering, when you were talking about your recordings, do you have time limits for them? Because I know a lot of teachers are like, I want you to do a recording, but if you do a 5-minute recording, I can't listen to everybody's 5-minute recording because I don't want to listen to your recordings all weekend long. I love you, but I have more.
So Seesaw still does have a 5-minute limit. I'm going to see if I can pull up some of my students here without. I
just know a lot of teachers have that good intention, but then they get home on Saturday or they wake up on Saturday and they're like, I have 5 hours of recordings to listen to. What have I done?
Yeah, definitely. One that if I do the recordings, and I've told them this, it's mainly been for some of our math talks. So I can show you guys again kind of what that looks like without showing some students here, because this is not on my dummy screen. There we go. So this was a math talk that my students did. And all they had to do was take the microphone and record themselves and showing their work. And like I said, it's only 5 minutes. But what I liked also about the microphone is, so anytime that you create an activity and I wanted to give directions, typically I had to upload it in a different link using Loom or some other service. But one thing that, again, Seesaw added after COVID was the ability with that microphone to also go to multiple pages at a time, and it would record a video. So with most, if not all of my activities, there's a directions page unless we do it together. And so this is kind of an example of how the microphone does work.
All right, so your job today is to use there in this picture. Pulls the highlighter. And I want you to go and using the picture, explain to me how many wheels are there and how do you know, and you can use drawings. And then you're going to use your microphone and you're going to explain to me how many wheels you think there are and how you know.
And so that's been really helpful because some of my students will say, well, I didn't understand what you meant. It's like, well, did you listen to the first slide? No. Okay, let's do that as the first step. And they're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
You're making me think of a few TikTok teacher videos that I've seen lately where teachers are kind of losing it over that. Well, Alicia, you're kind of setting my imagination on fire in terms of how I can use Seesaw. And you mentioned math. Let me quickly say that I do teach 8th grade math at the moment. And one of the huge epiphanies I've had is instead of homework checks, which, you know, teachers have different views or practices around how do you check homework or keep students accountable that way. I just use Seesaw as a check for understanding. Yeah. So I throw 1 or 2 sample problems based on the last learning target on Seesaw. And then students narrate their way. They use the pen or the number tool and they narrate their way through the solution. And to get to the problem of video, because Taylor and Alicia, you both talked about that. I can't watch, or I don't want to watch 3 minutes from all of my students. And, you know, I can have multiple classes, so it's not manageable. But one thing that I do, at least in math, and it might be harder in literacy areas, but in math, I can see where they end up. Even at the end of the video, it shows me where they've ended up. And so I can just look at that, or I can skip through the video and maybe in about 10 seconds, get a sense of their process and get a sense of whether they ended up at the correct solution.
Yeah.
And so I can give them some feedback on that very, very, very quickly, while it still obviously keeps the whole video in that learning journey as an artifact, and their parents can enjoy it as well. So math, it's been an absolute game changer. I've loved it there. Now, Matt, let's hear from you. Let's back up for a second. Tell us quickly the story of kind of how your paths crossed here in the LMS journey. This is a partnership made in heaven here.
Yeah, so she's been using it for years. I've been using Google Classroom for years. And then when we went all online in March, I was teaching basically Algebra 1 at the high school level. And, you know, I looked at what she was doing. She, you know, obviously instructed me of all the great things Seesaw can do. And I was thinking for my kids, because most of my classes are about 35% special ed, and just the multimodalities of Seesaw would allow my students in an online setting be able to just work with the material that we had. We were able to differentiate. We could also use the each individual student's journal as evidence for IEP meetings. If you're looking at progress and data and that type of thing. So that was really something that's beneficial. So I was just working with, she just talked to me about it. I was looking at all of her stuff and I was like, hey, you know, this looks great. I talked to my co-teacher and we're like, all right, let's start integrating Google Classroom and Seesaw together, using Google Classroom as our main hub, and then using Seesaw for really all of our major like assignments and tasks. And then
you had to train me on Google Classroom.
Yeah, and then basically when she jumped into a district that used Google Classroom, I had to teach her all the ins and outs of Google Classroom this like August. So we're going through all the ins and outs of Google Classroom. So, and then she started using Google Classroom and Seesaw as well. So, and I wrote a long blog post in like April about the integration of Google Classroom and Seesaw during going into online learning. And it was quite a hit. And it was great because we took basically everything that we were doing in algebra and we digitized it. And what I just like about Seesaw is just being able to take pictures, draw on it. And really, honestly, it doesn't need our assignments in past don't need to be necessarily that long. They just need to show evidence of showing that learning. So that's what I really like about Seesaw. It can be really quick if we want. So it's, I think it's just a really powerful integration, and we just learn from each other each day and just learn how to do, further innovation. So it's kind of great.
Working on my coaching skills.
I love it. It's PD on the pillows over there at the Road household. So that's a lot of fun. So we've gotten into some of the technical details, and as we start to wrap up here, I do want to give a little more time for are there any other strategies or hacks that you would share with teachers like the ones on my team who are just starting to integrate the two platforms? I can think of one suggestion for sure, and that is use that once you've posted an activity on Seesaw, I use those 3 dots at the bottom right of the activity to get student link, and then post that on Classroom, because I want my students to be able to count on their Google Classroom to-do list as sort of the one-stop shop. If I've done everything here, I know I've done everything kind of idea. Fonz, I want to go back to you. Is there anything else you would add in terms of helping teachers think about how to integrate, or even how to think of the two platforms separately?
Well, like we were hitting on, I mean, everybody hit on pretty much just the multimodal learning that you can do. Don't sleep on it. Just here's my suggestion. I know that many times we get overwhelmed. You've got a lot of tech that's going on. You're just getting used to one platform, and now you're being introduced to a different platform. Just take it at ease, keep it simple. And I always tell my teachers, just get clicky with it. You're not going to break anything. Get clicky with it. You learn it, and you're going to make mistakes. We will all make mistakes. But once you start working with the students and you start familiarizing yourself with it, you're going to see how great this tool can be. And just keep it simple. Take it one step at a time. But I do agree with you. One of my favorite things to do to tell teachers is just get that link, put it into Google Classroom, because that's what I would do also, as well as we would still have those links there. The students would just go open up their Google Classroom, open up their activity, and they can go ahead and get started with their activity. But again, what I love about the platform, like many of you have mentioned, is just the interactivity of it. And like Matt said, one of my favorite things is always, I'm going to have evidence of learning. And that's what I want. It's something that is visual. It's not going to be, a boring worksheet that we're going to be doing and we're just annotating on as a PDF, which you can hear. It does have tools where you can fill in the boxes, you can type. But I love the fact that I can tell my student, hey, I want you to record something for me. So now you're giving them voice and choice. And we know that other platforms do that. But here you've got them being able to write, you've got them being able to annotate, and being very creative, and just being creative, not just consumers, but being those creators. And I think that this platform, along with Google Classroom, is just a pretty good marriage, a pretty good pairing, like peanut butter and jelly. They can work well together, and each will serve a purpose. Like Matt said, I agree that also as well that, Google Classroom can be seen as that centralized hub for all of your materials, where students can go and find whatever it is that they need. But the activities can be done through Seesaw, interactive, fun, and engaging. And what I loved is, as I'm looking through my old Seesaw classrooms, that once Alicia brought them up, I was like, oh, remembering my student. I love seeing that when a student would post their video, I can see that their mom or their dad watched that video. And that right there is key to me. Because that's an important part of education, where oftentimes I feel that our learning community, or our schools or our districts, are not reaching out to our parents as much as we need to. And they are part of their learning community. Without parents, we wouldn't have a job, because we wouldn't have kids to teach. So we need to make them part of the learning process as well, and give them the opportunity to be able to see the work that is happening and that is going on. So, I mean, that's, I think I might have gone off on a little tangent there, but I'm really passionate about that. And so that's one thing, again, going back to teachers, get clicky with it. You're not going to break it. Get familiar, and that's it. Just keep it simple.
Hey, that getting clicky with it needs a good Weird Al version or remake there. He needs to come up with that. But you nailed it, Fonz, in terms of parent engagement. And I was trying to help a teacher understand, why do we need to add Seesaw? And I said, like, I love Google Classroom, but it does a sucky job of showing parents the learning of their children. It just, it doesn't do it at all, really. So you're right. Getting parents involved, engaged, seeing them like and comment on their kids' work is incredible. Taylor, what else should teachers be thinking about if they're entering this integration for the first time? What other advice or strategies would you pass on?
Well, first things first, the principal that did the Can't Touch This parody, he's a friend of mine. He works down here. So I'm going to call him, and we might have to do a Get Clicky With It video.
Yes.
Second thing, what I love about this is it works on every device. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether it's a cell phone, a Chromebook, an iPad, whatever you got, it's gonna work. So it doesn't matter what you have at your house. It doesn't matter where it is. You get the same product every time. The second thing that I love is, like you said, as a parent, I can look at my kids' stuff and I'm like, oh, that's awesome. They did that today, or they celebrate. Like, I have one of my twins, I have her class pulled up right now, and they took pictures of her yesterday because today is her birthday, her and her sister's birthday. And so they have pictures of their little birthday crowns on and all this. And it's just cool to see that stuff that they're doing. But, another thing that I love is that if you know Google, if you know Classroom, you can easily do Seesaw. I mean, and if you don't, then all you have to do is just find someone that does. Because I can tell you, I don't think any of us live close to each other. But yet we're here having this conversation about this. So all you have to do is find an educator and go, hey, I don't know this. Like, okay, well, we can do it this way. Just like you have the 3 dots in Seesaw, you have 3 dots in Google. I mean, you just have all these things that work together and they do the same thing. They're really mirrored very well. So if you know one, it's very easy to know another. I tell people it's kind of like speaking English. I speak, and even in the United States, I speak Southern English, so it's a little different. But if you can speak this English, you can speak most of British English. There's a few differences, but you can understand each other because it's very, very similar. And so it's the same thing. If you got one, you can do the other, and they just work so well together to do those things and to make it easy for kids. I mean, my kids will come home and they'll look at their stuff. I'll look at their stuff. We'll go over it. And it's just so simple as a parent to go, okay, you did this. Awesome. You get the parent tool, and there's apps for it. It just, the simplicity makes it amazing. So for me, I'm always about my big thing is, let's break it down Barney style. Okay. So if Barney can teach it, everybody can learn it. Right. So that's the way I want to do it. We're going to do that for parents. We're going to do it for kids. We're going to do that for teachers, because the easier it is, the better we're all going to be. And so that's really what it does. And I love that.
Back to the Rhodes team, Matt, what would you say to teachers who, we've talked about K-3, K-5, what would you say to teachers who are a little skeptical at those higher grades? What's your perspective in terms of using Seesaw and how it can really add to that classroom?
If you want to show evidence of learning, I think Seesaw is probably one of the best platforms. And the integration with, for example, if you're teaching math, I can go on my iPad, I can give them, written feedback on the platform as well to show them like what exactly the steps they may have missed, as well as verbal feedback, which is amazing. You see the feedback as, in multiple modalities, in written as well as verbal. I think that's absolutely, it's a good feature of it. I'd also say that just for all learners, I think special education, English language learners, you can essentially provide multimodality learning through it. So I think that is, that's for everyone. It doesn't matter what age you are.
Right.
So I think it works that way as well. And I think that when you integrate something like Google Classroom, you can integrate other tools. For example, I had an assessment the other day. It was a performance task. We're looking at the Australian census data. They were able to graph on Seesaw. They were able to look at the infographics and data, and they were able to dissect that data and answer questions and do analysis. And then I was, through Google Classroom, able to integrate, for example, we use Paper Learning as an online tutoring service. So students could go and talk to the tutor at any time about the assessment or the task. So I was able to integrate all these things together. So it just creates really powerful platforms for learning. And I think that it doesn't matter what age. age doesn't matter to me. It's all about the learning and evidence of learning.
I so agree, and I'm glad to hear other educators speaking that way, because I really think Seesaw can go all the way up to grade 12. I mean, really, why not? It is
Absolutely.
a simple interface, but it's powerful. And one term or one name we haven't mentioned yet in this conversation is Flipgrid, and we all love Flipgrid. But you know what? Seesaw offers a lot of those Flipgrid features right natively within the platform. And this year I'm not using Flipgrid because a lot of that interaction, the video recording, the video reflections, the screencasting, that can all happen natively right within Seesaw.
Yep.
Alicia, we're wrapping up, and as we close, I'm going to give one more round for each of you to give contact info and maybe let us know where we can find you and track you. To connect. Alicia, you've already shared some gems in terms of those screenshots. I'm so glad we have this on permanent video because I want to go back and watch those again. But do you have anything else to share? You're in that intermediate middle area. Do you have any other piece of advice that you've thought of just listening to this conversation?
I think one of the biggest things about, although Seesaw looks very primary and simple, we sometimes forget that sometimes our kids just need that when they're with information. Just because they're higher level kids doesn't mean they don't enjoy that fun, that little just being playful with learning. And I think we need to sometimes keep that in mind with our older students. And just like anything, it's about what content you're putting out. You could be a 12th grader on Seesaw, but it doesn't mean you're going to be getting second grade work. Just because people feel like this is a primary, it's just more about what the content people are pushing out to the students. I definitely agree with the student link pushing that out. That's been a game changer this year for me. But back in the spring when I was teaching my grade level team together how to do Seesaw, another tool is that you can share the Seesaw activities with other teachers. And so we put an entire Excel spreadsheet together with different, with all of our different subjects. And any of the activities that we created that we thought was actually worthwhile, we would share out with each other. So you weren't having to recreate the wheel. I would put out all of my stuff in one spreadsheet for my staff and say, use what you want, and they can copy and edit it and change it to what their kids needed. It wasn't, you're not having to recreate everything. And also the Seesaw community is amazing. On Facebook, on Twitter, but even inside the app itself, there's all of those generated and Seesaw approved activities that teachers already are creating from K or pre-K all the way through high school that you can also use. So there's that free resource guide where you can kind of, like you said, get clicky with it, go and see what you like. That's where I get a lot of my ideas. I would love to say I've created all of this, but no, I found other things from Seesaw, other Seesaw teachers, and was just taking that and adding on.
Taylor is going to throw in an analytics point, and we haven't talked about the admin information. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. I just want to add as well, Alicia, you mentioned being able to use activities from the Seesaw community, which is great. It's sort of like a free teachers pay teachers in a sense. Yeah. But the even better than that is, from my perspective as a teacher, is the activities that have been posted by your own colleagues. Yeah. Because in a sense, you know them better and you trust their professional judgment and you sort of know what you're getting. Like, oh my goodness, this person down the hall who's amazing just posted this activity. I know I can use that with confidence. You know what I mean? So you're not spending as much time sort of weeding through the stuff that other teachers around the Seesaw world have posted. So thank you for that. That access. That shared access is really, really powerful within Seesaw. In Classroom, you don't get that. You can only repost from classes that you are a part of as a teacher. So there's no central archive or library. Taylor, talk to us about the analytics side. You've got something to share.
Well, I first want to say about the classrooms is that because they are there, you can use old activities that were a big hit. Just go, all right, let's use that again. You know, and things that didn't work as well, you can go, okay, we're not going to use that this well because your classrooms are there. We have classrooms back from 7 years ago. You know, it's just they're still there, and you can still use activities from them if you want.
And you're talking Seesaw, right, Taylor?
Yes, Seesaw. So Seesaw does that for you. And then on the analytics side, you know, it gives you which family members viewed pages, how many likes a student has, how many comments were made on their work. So I always say, when it comes to SEL, there's a reason social emotional comes before the learning, because you can't have the learning until you have the first two. So when you look at that, you have a student that maybe is getting 0 interaction, or maybe is getting 0 likes or whatever, and you could take an adjustment and go, okay, why is the student not getting any likes? Or, are their parents following up with them, or are they seeing what they are doing? And it really lets you dive into kind of that student situation of, are they being supported? And it's not always that way, because sometimes parents just, they're doing their own stuff at home. But I mean, you can really tell a lot by the interactions that come with what students do, with what other students do. If students liking all these other students' activities, but not this one student, then you can know, okay, this student might be struggling. I might need to give them extra support. Things like that really help when it comes to the analytics side of it. And it tells you how much a student is posting, all these different things. You can take different timelines and really look at that, and it'll show you in a quick glance, which students are popular or not, or which students have parents that are really involved or don't, and things like that lets you have that insight to a student to know how to support them and know how to teach them better.
That's an amazing use of the analytics, Taylor. You're blowing my mind right now, because I'm new into it, and I've been looking at which classes have the most activity in terms of likes and posts and engagement. I have not been looking at students to see how many likes and comments they are receiving. So, wow, amazing. You also mentioned, I don't know if you use the word blog, but you're kind of speaking to that. Alicia, just quickly, how much or what percentage of your activities would you say you push out to your class blog?
This year I haven't done it fully yet. I'm still trying to get parent connections. But previously in other years, that's where I would post a lot of that high quality work for students to use. Anytime we did like a writing, we would just kind of put those amazing pieces of work or whatever they thought was their best work by the end of trimesters. I would then have them asked to have it published. And so that would allow for that. Previously with other aspects of using like videos, I used to put any kind of student announcements that they wanted to give the class on there, because in the spring when it was home learning codes, they couldn't see each other. And so a lot of our spirit days would go in that blog, that post, and just the way that they would interact was more on the blog, but their journal was more about their learning.
I just think for environments where kids are distance learning, where they're not rubbing shoulders with IRL classmates, the more we can put on the blog, the better, because they learn well from each other, and they see examples of each other's work. I haven't really done much of it yet either, but because I'm in a face-to-face environment, but I'd like to get that going. Well, I want to respect all of your time. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. I could speak for another 2 hours with this problem. But I want to give you a chance to sort of say goodbye, and also let viewers and listeners know where they can reach out and connect with you. Starting, we're going back to Fonz, who has an awesome podcast that you need to subscribe to. So Fonz, where can we reach out, connect with you, and get a hold of your learning?
Oh, thank you, Tim. Yeah, so you can go ahead and reach out to me. There's my Twitter handle right there at my EdTech Life. We've got a awesome, podcast as well, and I'm just thankful to be here. I know Matt has been a guest on our show, and so just check us out. And just for anything and all things, you can just reach out. If you have any questions, feel free. I'm always available, and if I don't have an answer, I'll make sure I find somebody that can answer anything for you to help you out, because I'm all about a PLF. It's a professional learning family. We're all in this together, and the more that we can add to our family with just amazing people such as yourselves that have amazing insight and amazing experience, then hey, we're doing a great service to all of our educators. So let's continue to grow our professional learning family. And again, you can check out our podcast called My EdTech Life, and the link will be there on our Twitter profile as well. So thank you, guys.
Amazing. I saw the Rhodes team just updated their name. Thank you so much. That's helpful. Taylor, tell us where we can reach out and connect with you.
Yeah. So on Twitter, I am at Taylor seesaw_does_it. It's weird. It's not for IT. It's just for in education. We do everything. So I'm here to do it if you need me to. And then on Instagram, I'm Be the Compass. That's my kind of thing, is be the compass in people's lives and be the direction that helps them go forward and keep making progress. And so that's a lot of what I'm about and what I do. And so that's where I am on those social medias. And I'm also the same with Fonz, man. You know, I've written stuff down just from this conversation. So, you know, it's all about learning. None of us know everything, and you know, there's always something new to learn. And I'm like him, man. If I don't know, I'll say I don't know, but let's learn together. So that's the conversation. Let's continue to learn and continue to grow together. And if you need me, I'm there for anybody, for anything.
Taylor is a giver, so appreciate you, and it's been great to be connected on Voxer, so I hear your voice on my morning commute fairly regularly. Matt and Alicia, over to you. Matt, I know you've got a book that you need to mention in this conversation.
Yeah, so I came out with a book called Navigating the Toggle Term. Fonz has a copy, signed off his copy. So that came out this summer in early 2021. A new book is coming out with Codebreaker Publishing related to navigating the toggle term. So really excited about that coming out. Just a guide for all teachers and leaders to navigate online blended learning, etc. So I'm really stoked that that's coming out early next year. MatthewRhodes.com, my blog. I'm always updating my blog and talking about ed tech, education related things. And then just my Twitter at MattRhodes1990. You'll see my just posting all the time and talking to Fonz and everyone else in the PLN and PLF. So
there you go.
Amazing. And Alicia, how about you?
I was not using my time as well as he was during COVID shut down. I was more of the Netflix watcher. So for me, my Twitter handle and Instagram is at Roads to Reading. One of my other cool things besides doing Seesaw would be that I'm also a reading specialist. So for me, I have a big love for literacy and especially writing, being a San Diego area writing project fellow. That's also a great avenue for trying to get any kind of writing instruction. So I'm mostly in the classroom and doing more coaching. I'm still building up my blog, but feel free to reach out to me on Twitter and Instagram. And I share a lot of my student work there and doing a lot of those samples and tutorials on Twitter and Instagram.
Well, thank you so much. And Alicia, thinking back to the screen shares that you shared with us earlier, I can't encourage you enough to, I know it's always a time issue, but if you can put some of that up on YouTube, that's another. I
have done some. I think my YouTube is at Roads to Reading as well.
There we go. So we've got that YouTube channel going. Awesome. Well, hey, Fonz, Taylor, Matt, and Alicia, I want to thank you so much for joining me this morning and just recharging my thinking about how these two platforms can work together effectively. I've had some great communication with Seesaw directly lately. I am not paid by them. I'm just a big fan and trying to learn more. And so I will make sure to refer this conversation to them. If you are watching, if you've joined us today and you've got more questions, leave them in the comments. Reach out to these wonderful people at the Twitter handles you see here, and let's grow this Seesaw community. But thank you so much for sharing your time and ideas. You all encourage me so much. Take care, and let's talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.